Welcome everyone to this evening's fireside chat with Finian Makepeace from Kiss the Ground. It's wonderful to be having this conversation with Finian. Finian and I got a chance to get to know each other probably since about April or May, and such mutual respect that we have for each other. We're all talking about a very important topic, which is soil. And it needs all of us to come together to really make this something that people have a deeper understanding of the importance of soil and how it affects every aspect of our life, from the food we eat to where we live, to the climate, to down to the water that the farmers end up having to use. So many different aspects that it touches upon. And one of the things that's needed to make this something that everybody understands the importance of is storytelling. So people understand how it relates to them. Having the scientific data is very much needed in this kind of field, but also how does that relate to people is very much needed. And one of the topics, this topic has been done brilliantly by Kiss the Ground, the movie. And so we thought we'd have this conversation with Finian to kind of walk us through Kiss the Ground, what they've been able to accomplish, the impact the movie's had. And then also there's a follow-up movie that just recently came out called Common Ground that also is able to bring the farmers' experiences of this journey of regeneration and what it means to them as well too. So Finian, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll go ahead and let you, say a few words about Kiss the Ground.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you and the whole team over there, and thank you for including us here. I just want to echo that the amazing potential that we have in soil. And one thing I say so often, Jyoti, is I didn't know. And I think that's such an important context right now as we enter into COP28, and we are seeing this idea finally really getting a bit more attention and people connecting to it. But I want to take a step back some 12 years ago when folks like myself first learned about it. I was an activist, I was a know-it-all environmentalist, but I had no idea about the soil. And I say that because it takes some of that pressure away of like, well, either I should have known about soil or I don't, and therefore it doesn't matter, must not be that important. But so many key environmental leaders and folks who you think should have known about the power and potential and importance and incredible capacity that soil has to help with all the crises we face, but most of them didn't know. And so I tell that to our audience today to empower everyone, to have them say, wait, there is this thing that's emerging that really does touch nearly every human cause created crises on the planet. And we have this amazing potential. And storytelling is such an amazing tool. So 12 years ago, when we began, we didn't know either. And we said, what can we do? And the big obvious thing in the room was no one's simplifying this story. No one's getting the story out. There are the leaders, the farmers, the indigenous wisdom holders, and the scientists. But who's telling that story? Who's making the world be able to take that as their own story? And so that really set off our work. So that's the invite today to everyone that I have is you can also be a prolific storyteller. And that's what I'm going to be reminding everyone again and again today.
Absolutely. And I think this is where this movement that we've been on, this journey that we've been on with the Save Soil movement since it was launched in March 2022 is the idea of storytelling, right? That it is everybody, every single one of us, however we tell the story. And if you go on any of our platforms, you'll see people telling the story in their own unique way, whether it's the dance that we've been talking about, or the music, or being in the garden, or even composting, or taking soil and just putting in their hands, or dressing up as a dinosaur, a variety of different ways and creative ways that people have been able to do that. It's their own version of storytelling. And this is what's really helped this movement, I think, become not something that's talking about the catastrophic areas that we are in right now, but creating a sense of hope and a solution. And this is what this opportunity of getting everybody involved. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe, I know you have a little presentation that you wanted to share with us. So maybe, walk us through with some of the aspects of Kiss the Ground.
Yeah, I would be happy to. Thank you. Let's see here really quick. All right, slideshow. Is that coming up for you?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. So yeah, Kiss the Ground. We are an organization that officially was founded about 11 years ago. And this organization, as I said, came about because we didn't know. And we stumbled upon this idea as activists already, as environmentalists already. And we said, if we didn't know, probably most of the world isn't as aware about this huge solution as they could be. And as I mentioned, that first call to action was, well, where do we find this story? And we didn't see it out there. A lot of what was out there was hour-long YouTube videos of experts talking about this incredible opportunity, but there wasn't something tangible for people to hand off or other leaders in the movement to even share. So that really gave us this mission. We had been awakened, Jyoti, to this possibility. And we basically said, what if more people had that same awakening that we had? And that was the crux of our mission, which is awakening people to the possibilities of regeneration. And that's what Kiss the Ground does as an organization. And I'll talk more about the media that we create. Just really quickly, a lot of people know us for the storytelling, especially the films that we've worked on with directors Josh and Rebecca Tickell from Big Picture Ranch. But our work is in areas that we felt like needed to have help to move this movement forward. So storytelling, and then education, which I'll touch on in a minute, and then advocacy. Where are we bringing this? Just like you all are at COP right now, bringing this to policy. Where are we making sure that there's an end, that people can actually see a transformation, and that some of the big levers that do need to change are starting to move toward soil and recognizing it and utilizing it as a huge key solution to our crises. We have this slide as just deep reminder. For the past decade, we've heard over and over these goals to sustain, and it's totally logical. This is one of the most simple storytelling pieces that I hope people share out there. We can no longer think sustainability is enough. The world at this point does not need to be sustained. We have to work as humans to be stewards and to regenerate. We have to be in regenerative mode. So this is a reminder, nothing's wrong with sustainability. It's just that we're so degraded as a planet that we have to work really hard to regenerate everything so that things function again, so that water is available, so that biodiversity comes back, so that food and all food security is a real thing. These are all just tangible things that are on the ground every day, and soil functioning is that key. This is another message. Soil's broken. It doesn't work right now. It's not functioning. And when we move away from the sustainable think of how do we do less harm, how do we slow down a little bit, we are caught in inevitably going off the cliff still. Regeneration is really the only way. We're saying something's broken, it's not working. Muddy water is flowing into the rivers with tons and tons of topsoil every year. Well, if we fix the soil, if we rebuild the soil, if we work with nature to do that, we have functioning soil. And that's another example. Most farming is destroying soil right now, today, across the world at large. Regenerative agriculture rebuilds the soil while in production, while you're getting your food, your fiber, and your fuel. Regenerative agriculture is regenerative because it's regenerating the landscapes. So I just wanted to touch on those things really quick and then just get into storytelling and how big of an impact it's had, but still how much more we all have to do. We really consider this as incredible momentum, but really understanding that we're just getting close to that tipping point soon. And that's where the work of Save Soil and Kiss the Ground and other storytellers that allow people to get involved is crucial today more than ever. So we did a study here in the United States. While regenerative ag has made and soil health have made such big strides, we're still only at 4% of the people in the US being aware of the actual potential, being able to articulate in even the most simple of forms. So how we've done that at Kiss the Ground, as I mentioned, we said, who and how is this story getting out there? How are we equipped to get more people to understand this story? And so one of our first pieces of media was something called the soil story. And it wasn't necessarily to have everyone in the world be able to connect to this idea. It was a tool, GOT, that was made so that people could share something under 3 minutes to say, here's this idea, talking about climate, soil as a climate solution, water solution, biodiversity solution, and put it into a digestible, easy, animated format so people could get this idea. We said, wait, there's nothing like this out there. So that's where over, I think, 9 years ago, we started that production. And then we made some other key pieces of media, something called the Regenerative Secret, which was like, wait, cows aren't just the problem here. They can be a huge solution. Of course, in most production, they are a big problem, but they don't have to be, and they can be one of our biggest allies in reversing things. The compost story, really sharing that every single human around the planet that eats food can be a significant part by simply getting connected to compost as a regenerative substance versus just a nice fertilizer. And then we had a series called Grow What You Know, and countless other. These are just a couple examples. And the way that these come out are in mini documentaries, education series, and shorts. And we continue to do that. We have stories of regeneration which is an ongoing series. These are tools that allow people in the movement to learn themselves and then easily share and capture more folks to dive deeper in, to really grasp these ideas. If they watch Kiss the Ground, do they have supplemental material that's maybe not a whole documentary, but is something that they can share readily? And so these are things that we are committed to continuously putting out to the world as tools to use to move this forward. One of our big success stories that most folks are aware of us from is the work we did with Josh and Rebecca Tickell to make Kiss the Ground, the movie. And Kiss the Ground, the movie, narrated by Woody Harrelson's been viewed, total views, over 10 million times, 1 billion impressions, 33 million acres in the US transition alone because of that film. So that's just with Understanding Ag, who's highlighted in the film. So what this film did in the last 3 years to catapult folks taking it seriously, their transition, especially larger acreage farmers who are like committing now to completely transforming their operations. It was just amazing, from Australia to places in India to, I mean, so many cases of large companies who own ag land to smallholder farmers who own ag land, really getting that this was possible and seeking out the education to do it. So just incredible impact with storytelling. And this is just a case of the Secretary of Agriculture here in the United States, for those who don't know, who's really the one in charge with our agriculture, what we're funding, how we're funding it. But he credits the work of connecting him to Kiss the Ground, the film, but also connecting him to leaders and having personal conversations with leaders in soil health and regenerative ag as the main reason he prioritized soil health. He's been ag secretary now twice. This is his second term. The first term, he did not know about the soil crisis and the soil solution at large. So this is the stuff that, you know, you can come in as someone who's just an activist, but the film and the connectivity, and that storytelling goes beyond the film, Jyoti. I want to mention that is he watched the film, he liked it, he got some aha moments. But when we started to connect him and have personal conversations so that the leading farmers who've been proving this and showing how rapid this can happen across the world, like Dr. Alan Williams, who you had on the program a couple of days ago, folks like that who are able to tell specific stories of specific times. I think that's one of the most important things that advocates can do, is be a hand holder where you say, hey, I am not the farmer, or I am not the scientist or the indigenous leader, but I'm going to connect that person to someone who can make a big difference, whether it's a business or a government official. We don't have to be that. You can be a connector. And I've done that so many times. And that's been often my biggest contribution, is start with a story that inspires and then connect more deeply with those direct stories and personal relationships that can evolve. And all of a sudden, miracles are happening a year or two later. This was another case with the former chairman of the House Ag Committee being, you know, he's the chairman of the House Ag Committee at the time, and watched Kiss the Ground completely transformed. And this is the kind of thing that happens all the time when you create and utilize these tools, and all of us share in these tools, the constant tools you guys are sharing out there. But there's other groups as well that are sharing tools that get across to these people, whether their family member watches it or they watch it directly. It does transform people and bring people in. As you mentioned before, like the investment in regenerative agriculture, it's at this very, very strange place, GOT, where there are so many folks who are inspired, connected, and want to do this with their companies, but they're still in a very crunchy place. So the storytelling has oftentimes gotten them or their company to get into this, but they're in this moment of how far, how fast are we going to go, because we don't know how and in what way our consumers are going to be engaged in this. So they're in this process, and we're often called all the time on the phone of how am I going to share this with my customers? And so this is a place that the movement's in, is there's this huge upswell of businesses and investment and people interested, but there's a bit of trepidation right now because of folks who are wanting to tell the story but aren't feeling fully empowered to do so because they're also new to the conversation. This is the film you mentioned, Common Ground. This is just a quick snap of some of the screenings that happened last month. We had over 78 screenings in the United States over the past 2 months, and is now one of the top 10 documentaries in the United States, and is soon going to be going international when it launches on streaming, probably late February. But look out for Common Ground. This film, like Kiss the Ground, is huge inspiration, but also has a lot of tactical things that are extremely useful, not just for the US. It's pretty US centric in its numbers, but it really applies to where governments are oftentimes not sitting at the table helping this because of other interests that have really pushed them away to helping farmers get out of their debt cycles, helping farmers really navigate soil health in a big way. So look out for Common Ground. This is a tool for the whole world to use. And then following that up, there'll be Groundswell. The third film of the series will be available in the next couple of years, which is going to be an international focus. And we hope to work with you guys more on that as well. So to conclude, I got clear about 11 years ago that I was responsible to spread awareness. I was a touring recording artist, musician at the time. My other co-founder, Rylan, was a restaurateur. But we were both struck that even though we weren't the farmers, the scientists, or the indigenous leaders, we were able to share the story. And so I'm encouraging everyone here today to step up in your ability to tell the story. And why that's so important is this is what makes movements happen. If we're going to reach a tipping point, and Save Soil has done this better than anyone else in the world in such a short time, because you've also done huge movements before. You guys have exercised this of how do we get people and connected. So watching what you all have done has been nothing short of extraordinary. But that awareness side is so critical to reach tipping points. We have to have awareness before actions, and we have to have actions before outcomes. And oftentimes movements slip into too few people who've spread the awareness, then move into actions, and they start doing the outcomes on their own, and they don't hit critical mass. And that's why I'm so happy to connect more with you, GOT, and the team at Save Soil, because you guys get that. You get the factor of critical mass and that awareness. Everyone's saying, I can chip into the awareness. I can chip into the awareness no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm a farmer, whether I'm a college student, whether anybody. We're all collectively adding to this bubble of awareness that will be, when we hit the tipping point, why soil and regenerative ag become the big focus for climate, water, human health, water security, or rural economics, et cetera, in the next 5 years. Well, I know it's going to happen with all of us. This is a funny example to end our presentation of why it matters. This is the leader. These are the indigenous people, elders, the wisdom holders, the farmers, the scientists. They do their thing, but they are not necessarily why everyone else starts doing it. So the second person, each of you out there watching today, you can be this second person, just like Save Soil, just like Kiss the Ground. The second person comes, and that's the reason why more people show up. It was the leader who made the idea available, but the leader wasn't the reason more people show up. And so remember, whether you're the third, second, fourth person, whatever you want to call yourself in this, that role is absolutely essential for us to move and hit critical mass. And that's why storytelling, you do, even one post on your social media matters. It really, really does, because it's connecting people, whether it's the first time, third time, fifth time that they heard this, it matters. Now, I just want to share one thing that is so critical too. Storytelling at level 3 or 4, right? This is the stuff that really starts to have that next phase happen. As I mentioned, I do a lot of parlaying where I'm bringing the experts, the major doers, the farmers and scientists and indigenous people, bringing them to the table with the people who can make big decisions. But there's always times when those people aren't available, and there's always ways of communicating that connect to those leaders or decision makers that the person who is doing the work might not be able to know, be available or not. So as we proliferate stories, sharing stories, getting the message out there, we need millions of people who feel more adequate in their ability to go into a meeting, go into a presentation, and share in depth about this huge opportunity and potential, to feel confident doing it. So we made a course called Soil Advocate Training. It's loosely based off of Al Gore's Climate Reality Project, of getting people not just inspired and connected, but educated and in more depth, being able to confidently present countless slides that they can use and reformat on themselves. These are tools that allow for anyone in the movement to move this forward. And this is a 9-week course. It's a masterclass. But just last month, we launched a 90-minute version. Instead of the 9-module, 18-hour course, we have a 90-minute version that's super simple. That's a great first step for anyone out there who's like, I'm so inspired, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm moving into a leadership or a position as a confident advocate on my own. And this is the tool. So working with Save Soil and so many others, we've said, look, all of us have roles to play, but we're encouraging anyone, just like I did. I was not in this space. Jyoti was in this space. Like, what is that thing that allows you to dive deeper? And instead of taking 6 years to become proficient at it, why not take a month to become proficient at it? And this is what the tool that we wanted to have out to the world. And like I said, there's the full 9-module course, or there's the 90-minute course. Both are available for the world right now. The big point is we can regenerate Earth. From the Laos Plateau in China, that area the size of Denmark, completely transformed with regenerative ag, to, like I said, the 33 million acres that are already in transition in the United States alone from one group called Understanding Ag, and countless more, probably 150 million already starting to transition here. Around the world, we're watching this opportunity, and the good news is it's good for farmers. They reduce their input costs, and it's good for the local economies. It's good for the watersheds. It's good for biodiversity, and it's good for carbon sequestration. It's good for all of these things, and it can happen and is happening. And all of us can be critical parts of making this story what becomes the next decade of climate action, of biodiversity, water action around the world. Thank you so much for listening.
Well, thank you, Finian. As you were presenting, there were so many connections that I was making. That's what I love having these conversations with you, because there's so much alignment. There's so much that we all want to do together. And when you showed that video of that first person dancing, it reminded me, this is exactly what Sadhguru did. He went on that motorcycle journey. He went that 100 days, 30,000 kilometers to be the first person to get everybody else moving, to make Save Soil what it was. Maybe not one person dancing in the field, but 100-day journey, quite significant, but it did do the same thing as that first person. It got people talking. So that was the first point I wanted to make when you were showing your presentation that it reminded me of. And then the other aspect of it too is that, how a story is told now, we're in a very different world. It's not this complicated thing. It's a hashtag. A hashtag can tell a story. This hashtag Save Soil. We have just for this COP, we have hashtag Save Soil, Fix Climate Change. It was trending in India. Just one hashtag can tell a story, right? So how you tell it is so different. It doesn't have to be something so complicated. But the aspect of it is this, it just begins with the story. The action part of it is very much needed. And the story is to inspire, but then there's action that's needed afterwards. And I think that's where we all come together. And that's what we're doing here at COP, getting the right people to have the right conversations. And it's to inspire, but then the action afterwards is very much needed. Seeing where this will lead is very exciting for us. But we also want to roll up our sleeves and get some work done. And I think we just mentioned, and you showed a slide, you and I, when we were talking before this fireside chat, is what can we do with this storytelling? You shared some experiences that you had with policymakers. And again, this goes back to what one of the aims for Safe Soil is to advocate for policy. Get enough people so the policy makers feel that they're empowered because the people are behind them. And that inspiration, again, comes from the people and creating that. But, there's opportunities that have still been, I think, like you're saying, we still need to uncover with the storytelling. And this morning we had a panel here talking about finance. And, incredible individuals were here. Private sector person was here from AIM Partners. There was somebody here from IFAD. Like this, we had very incredible people here. At the end of this whole enriching conversation, they said, we need to be able to tell something compelling to those that are bringing the money, right? Whether it's corporations, whether it's public, private sectors, this idea of the storytelling. So we do have a lot of work to do. We have, we need everybody to be able to do this. So it was incredible to hear that aspect of it.
Yeah,
And then
there's the, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
I
go
was just
ahead.
going to say, in terms of like, I think there's a constant deep surprise at how much it works. And what I mean by that is whether it's someone seeing the things, all these posts that have happened with Safe Soil, and just by the way, with Sadhguru's trip, all the people, that second person, are the people who are making that video available to the world. And like, if he had done it and no one had videotaped it, or no one had done any documentation, put that story out, we wouldn't have known about it. We wouldn't have been able to share about it. So it's that the person who, what I was saying, the second person is like, they're documenting what he was doing so that all of us can see, all of you guys, the work you're doing was making it so that the world can join. Otherwise, he would have just been on a motorcycle trip by himself. So,
Finian, I think all our video team and everybody is probably cheering right now. I see thumbs going up all around me right now. So
yeah,
they
so
work
it's
endlessly. Yes, they work
it's amazing. I mean,
endlessly
it's
to do this.
amazing, and that's that role of a movement is really on the shoulders of, did we make it available? And so what I was going to say is, from all these different types of media, it's dripping. We're causing these drip lines collectively. But I just wanted to share, with when someone is in a big position of power, if you're able to have an event at their house where 12 people come up and they screen Kiss the Ground the movie or Common Ground the movie, and they sit through the whole thing, the level of opening up and the amount of massaging of their brain muscles to absorb this idea is palpable. I've experienced it so many times. So you can have the short drips that are collectively, dropping the compost, if you will, on the brain of fertilizing it. But when someone's able to have this transformative experience, what they're willing to do in their business or investment or something else, they have seen most of the whole picture. And of course, they're going to want to have continuing conversations, get those questions answered, connect, as I mentioned. So let's say they watch a movie. When you can have them watch a movie and then personally connect with someone like Gabe Brown, who's a star of the movie, and they're a huge business or a huge investment firm, those are the things that we've seen just take something in a month all the way down the court, versus like, I hope someday that company does that. All of a sudden, they've moved because they got it. They understood that this is not only economic for them in the long term, for the business supply that they have, but also all of these environmental benefits that are important for them as someone who might have been doing the opposite for their majority of their career. So a lot of potential when you set that up and you create that container.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I just want to switch gears just a little bit. We're talking about storytelling and how it could bring certain amount of change and action. But I think there's something that's been kind of in the limelight of the, social media, the news feed in the last month or so. And that's, how do you use storytelling to bring humor to something that is so heavy sometimes, right? Climate change, there's such a, media tends to want to talk about the catastrophic aspects of it, the doomsday scenario, which, understandably, you want to draw attention to it. You want to say why we need to act now, the importance of it. So that's needed. But so is the other part of it, the balance of that. So how do we bring
on that
humor and
note,
storytelling?
I can't spill the beans on this completely, but our new CEO, Evan Harrison, would love that you're talking about this, because he pushed and it's being made. We have a satire coming out for Earth Day. So it's exactly what you're talking about. It's hilarious, but it's a satire on the whole thing, and it's a comedy, short comedy. But Yeah, Evan would love to hear that. That's what you're talking about, is how do we bring this up? Because he's like, we need something that's just funny. We've done enough of these talking heads getting serious and inspiring. That's great, but we need a little more comedy. I love that you're saying that.
Yeah, especially I remember when we were having when we were in DC together and we are sitting around having dinner at the end of a long day and reflecting back on it. And this whole idea of ecological anxiety in the young population, right? Those in their teens and 20s. This is a future generation. They're the ones that are going to come up. And we want to make sure that even though they're going to be making the movements to make these things happen and making sure that we do go in the right direction, we can't burden them with this either. We need to create a certain sense of hope, and humor is a great way to do that. So maybe just say, it's wonderful that you do have this coming out, that, and I think this is what the Safe Soil movement is also doing, as I mentioned earlier on in the conversation, creating a certain level of lightness around it, not taking away from the seriousness of it, but starting off with the jig. I don't know. I think you probably have seen the jigs that we have on everyone's been doing the music, the Safe Soil little, jig, the all of that, right? Is creating a certain level of lightness around topics that are very heavy and inspiring people. So I'm glad to hear that. I look forward to seeing that as well too.
Yeah, I think on all of this stuff, the one thing I've learned too, GOT, is, and pardon me, it's still morning time here over for me, but for folks who are sharing this, the amazing thing about this idea is that, like I said in the beginning, we didn't know. Like, so many people didn't know. And there's such an amazing, inspirational feeling for that. So I encourage folks who are sharing this to go in with the feeling of that inspiration, because most environmental presentations or things are so doom and gloom. And obviously I shared the doom and gloom, but the feeling gives a smile on my face. And I encourage folks who are in this movement, who are sharing this, to carry that joy of this for the human phenomenon. Like, we literally have been, since my entire 20s, we're spent thinking we're going off the cliff. How are we going to go off the cliff slower? That was it. That was the only thing. And so that is extremely depressing. But when I learned that we can literally work with nature, reverse things, that brought not only a depth of hope that moves me to tears 9 times out of 10, but also a joy and a hope. And I encourage folks to bring that energy, to bring that smile, because this can be a happy movement, and it should be, because it is incredible that there's something that connects to so many of the crises we've started and has simultaneously wins on economics and rural economics and all of these things that are just plaguing us around the world, but not discounting the fact that we are where we are. We are living currently where we're living. We're not acting like any of those things aren't real. So this is just, it's almost too good to be true. When you dig to the bottom of what regenerative ag and soil can do, it's so phenomenal on all of these fronts that please carry the joy with it. Please carry that sentiment in your smile and your energy, because when you connect with a senator or a congressperson or a big business, like it's infectious, and they want it too. Yeah.
I just thought of an idea we should probably think about a little bit more, Finian, after this conversation. I think that we've had some really on the ground projects in India, Kaveri Calling, and other projects, farmer producer organizations, and we have access to over 100,000, almost 200,000 farmers. And we tend to talk about their stories about how they can't feed their families and their livelihoods. And very much that's important. We need to get that story out there, right? And, starting with somebody like Gabe Brown and him talking about it has an impact, because farmers will listen to farmers and understand. But you just gave me an idea, and maybe we should connect this afterwards. I'd love to learn about the bloopers. What did the farmers do when they were first trying to figure out this journey? What were the things that went wrong? Because I think that's just as educational for other farmers to hear. Hey, I did mess up. I did do something wrong. It wasn't a straight curve from point A to point B. There were many different detours that I had to take. So maybe we'll do
that's
a
so
movie about
important. And we do, and I see in workshops, those are the best workshops when the farmers are honest, and I think that's really important to get. We have a 5 with a farmer series. We'll try to get more of that integrated in there. But also, I just want to share, like, the hope side of things. We often look at the seriousness of what's being faced, but these small stories of hope, GOT, give me are some of the most moving to me. In places in the world where things are so bad, where you think about the last 30 years when certain populations and areas have been on 70% food aid and are even on water aid coming in, and the lack of hope and connection and sovereignty that these communities have. But to hear stories and get phone calls of, video phone calls from places in the world that have been hit the hardest, to hear in the course of 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden, instead of walking 4 or 5 miles to get clean water, they literally have their springs coming back because of what they did to regenerate the grassland, and they have food because the animals and the cropping systems that they developed are actually regenerative. Those stories are so amazing and hopeful that we know, like, it can happen. And this is where I want to mention something that's important, especially at COP. We hear a lot of people out there who are saying, oh, we just need more of the same. For the entire continent of Africa, there's a bunch of people pushing, we just need to fertilize the heck out of it. Be like, no, that is still degenerative. That is still killing the microbes. That is still defertilizing the land, even if you're compensating for degraded land. We have an opportunity to push against that agenda, which is making someone somewhere a lot of money and getting farmers in rural communities addicted to certain things versus a trajectory towards true hope and sovereignty. So we're saying, like, look, this is a big question that humanity is facing right now. There are people who have their hands deep into the pockets and the connections way more than we do as a global movement. We can say, at the end of the day, are the farmers in the local communities really winning? And that's what's so amazing about regenerative agriculture and soil focus, is that when we regenerate the soil, we regenerate the watershed, these things allow for communities around the world to really rise up. And this is where we're not against anybody, but we have to call it what it is, that there are interests in line right now who win if we just continue doing more and more of the same. And there are interests for the folks who are hit the hardest, who are struggling the most, who really need all of us to collectively make this voice. And that's why I'm so happy with what Save Soil is doing, is making the voices of the farmers and the people who are living this and having to deal with the stresses that the world's put on them. And this is that hope. This is that amazing opportunity that we can all be behind.
Well, it's been wonderful talking to you. I think we could probably talk for a long time. But, this is just one of many conversations to continue. I think, I was just looking over to see if there's any questions coming in. But thank you so much, Finian, for joining us. I know you couldn't be here with us in Dubai this time around. Maybe next COP we'll be together and have this conversation in person. But thank you for all your insights.
Thank you so much to all Save Soil is doing. And thank you, Jyoti. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you everyone for listening. Kisstheground.com is not just a place for resources of videos, but there's so many other resources for you to learn. Again, I just mentioned we have a soil advocate small course called Regenerative Agriculture Essentials that allows for you to take your excitement and inspiration and move it into you becoming a more confident advocate in a small form course, or you can take the larger form courses. But even our resources, Jyoti, we have just so many resources for people on our website at kisstheground.com that allow for people to dig in, understand, marinate on this subject, and work with Save Soil, work with Kiss the Ground. We all collaborate as a global movement with so many leaders in this. So please, everyone, step in. You're a part of the movement. Just get going and sharing and knowing that storytelling and this movement is here, and you can be a huge part of it. And we welcome you from Kiss the Ground and around the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're looking at putting a tab on our website that gives links to other people's resources. So yes, definitely we can all come together and make this happen. So, all right. Thank you so much, Finian, and have a good day.
Thank you.